listening audience. Again, I'm here with Lynn, and I have to make a clarification. When I look up at the ceiling, it's only because I'm thinking. When Lynn is with me, it's not that I'm trying to say, oh my God, what is she saying now? Not at all.
Yes, it is.
I just have that habit of looking at the ceiling when I'm thinking. Secondly, I got lots of comments on the evil eye, both good and not so hot. I just want to make 2 quick comments. We still believe that there's evil in the world, and people can incarnate evil by their bad intentions. And if we didn't believe it, as I mentioned the last time, the prayer for the churching says, preserve this child from every jealous eye. What is that? And when you baptize the child, do we not renounce Satan 6 times? And then we say breathe and spit on him. So there's concrete evidence in all of our liturgies and liturgical books and life itself that there is, we say in French, a mauvais esprit, an evil spirit. And people can grab hold of that spirit and wish bad things to happen to others. It's not a folly. It's not a farce. It's a reality that evil does exist in the world. And through our will, we can do, and people are doing bad things. How could you not see what's going on in the world and not think there's not evil? Just look at what ISIS is doing. Is that not evil? Rest my case.
Okay. Hi again. So much for the evil eye. If there are any comments, I'm sure you'll hear about it. We were talking about, last week we were talking, during the last session we were talking about relationships. And one of the things that we had mentioned was the fact that young people have a hard time distinguishing when their relationships with themselves are, as individuals, are important enough to stand up to their parents in certain areas, which might make their parents unhappy. And another thing, and another subject I wanted to broach today was, you know, we're right in the midst of a huge opioid epidemic. I see every other ad on TV is for some rehab house or call this a line for addiction, and the opioid crisis has reached a phenomenal level. How do you talk to your children about drugs in general? When do you start? When do you start this conversation, and how do you do it? Do you wait till they're teenagers when they're being exposed younger and younger? If you have a history, and many adults who, if there are any other dinosaurs out there who lived through the 60s, many adults have experimented with drugs themselves. Do you admit that to your children? Do you say, I did, you know, are you honest with them and say, I did do this and I did do that and I regret it, or these were my experiences? I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on it.
Well, what are yours first?
My thoughts are that you should be honest with your children. That you should, if you're talking to them about drugs, if you're talking to them about things that they're going to be exposed to. And my mother did that actually before I started high school. When I finished with 8th grade, before I went into high school, my mother spent some time talking to me and culturally it was not the thing to do, but in our culture, it wasn't something that would normally be done. But she wanted me to know that in high school I would be seeing and I would be exposed to things that I would not normally be exposed to or hadn't been exposed to. It was very superficial, but she was trying her best. I'm not sure at what age you start to talk to them. When a small child picks up by accident a vial of pills, you say that's medicine, that's for mommy, or that's for when you're not well. And later on, maybe you can start saying some people take these for other reasons. But I think the key is honesty. Do you think you should be honest with your children and tell them if you've taken drugs or if you've experimented?
Yeah. I believe it implicitly that you have to, like I remember in our house, we had lots of alcohol. And we told our children, it's right here. If you're going to drink, do it right here. And you remember we had that big basement, and they would have their parties downstairs. But we said, do it here. Don't do it outside. And of course, I remember telling them that I had an uncle that was an alcoholic and died. And I think that it's important to tell your kids your own life experiences so they don't think you're a dinosaur. So hopefully they will pick up on your experience and maybe try to avoid some of the stuff that you did, or we did. We were young.
Do you think that'll make them want to avoid it, or do you think that'll give them license to try? It's a
two-edged sword.
It's a fine balance. It's a very fine balance to know whether it's going to be something that say, well, mom did it. I think whatever you say to them, it has to be with. I think there should be a cautionary tale, a cautionary aspect of whatever you're talking about.
You have to be careful that parents are not friends of their kids.
No, that's true.
That's where you have to draw the line. We can't be friends with our kids. There has to be a time, and every family got to be different. When you sit down and tell your kids the truth about life experiences. Now, I don't think you have to go into every gory detail.
No, you don't owe them the story of your life.
I don't think that works. And secondly, don't forget, we were raised in the age of innocence. We never knew any of this stuff that's going on. What did we tell our kids? We had a party? There weren't drugs when we were growing up. And all of our social life was around the church. Sometimes people got a little bit schnockered, but most of our fun was with our friends in Soyo, which is an Orthodox youth movement in our church. Most of our social life was in our church. I don't remember a big social life outside of church.
And there always had to be a special request or some sort of special dispensation if there was going to be alcohol served in the hall. But often there wasn't at whatever parties there were in the church hall.
But to get back to the question, I think the dinner table is a very important place where parents can sit down and start opening up to their kids about the things they're going to experience when they get to high school. Listen, maybe in the next round I'll tell a few stories.
Or in middle school. And middle school is where things get started.
When I was in the hospital, those 4 months, can I tell you how many parents of early teenagers asked me what to do about their kids that were experimenting with oral sex. Because they said, well, it's okay, Bill Clinton did it. And they're talking about early teenagers in private schools. The doctors and nurses were beside themselves what to do with their, there were gangs that they would dare who would have the first oral sex. We didn't even know what that meant.
Our daughter Tammy, when we first mentioned oral sex to her, she said she thought that was when you talk dirty.
So we will continue this in the next round.
Yeah, I want to talk about how much honesty we do owe our children.